Hey everybody, today we are going to be doing another topic video, and this is movie cliches and things that just piss you off because you see them all the time. And before we get started on that, of course, I'm going to plug my website. It is deepfocuslens.com. I do commission portraits and I sell prints of my work. I'm an artist. If you are interested in any of that, you can just go to the shop, or if you have any questions for me about a commission or something like that, you can always email me. My email is in the description box below, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. But let's get started, and we will go with the first response here for cliches, and it is when a character gets stabbed or shot and they calmly look down at their wound, and then once they realize what happened, they start coughing up blood and or begin to die. It pisses me off because the characters should have ignored their wound to stay alive, right? I know what you mean. We do see that a lot in movies, absolutely, but that's actually a cliche that I don't mind because it's actually quite accurate from what I understand. A lot of times when a wound is really, really deep, sometimes you don't feel it. But with some very serious wounds, especially when you have a lot of adrenaline going, when you're in war or you're being chased or whatever, your body will just kind of not recognize that. So yeah, I think that the delayed reaction has to do with, it could be psychological, it's adrenaline based, but human beings in the body are very interesting. So that personally doesn't bother me, but yes, it is used quite a lot in movies. Not quite a cliche, but an Oscar baity trend I'm noticing is the long take. Don't get me wrong, I love an effective long take. Boogie Nights, Carrie, Come and See, when they work and serve the story, they can be incredibly immersive. But it's becoming more and more of a gimmick or showy trick than a way to make something flow or convey time. I absolutely agree, and I've talked about this plenty of times on here. I think my problem with a lot of modern movies, and I think this is a new cliche that I'm personally seeing that I think people should draw more attention to, is our obsession with aesthetic. And I think in a way movies are starting to, or at least the soul of movies and the complexity, the meat and potatoes of things are starting to die. And we're focused a lot more on editing and camera tricks. It's offering to be very showy. It's like, look how well choreographed this is, look how well shot this is, and rarely does it ever feel like it's actually organic, like it's actually meant to happen. A lot of times with long takes, they'll do them, but they don't necessarily mean anything, or they don't build in any sort of way. And I think the best long takes like that often, you start off with the shot and you end feeling very differently, or the story is building in some way through that singular shot. But I totally see what you're saying, and I do agree with you for the most part. Next one, kids drawing pics of demons and or talking to the dead. Both of these have been done to death. I see this in a new movie and I'm out most of the time, or from there on I can usually rip it apart. Yeah, and that's another one where, there are certain cliches that I think, you can do well, and other ones it's very hard to. This is a cliche that does get really annoying, the idea of like the child being able to see into the paranormal, the whole I see dead people cliche. Though I do understand where it comes from. I think, the idea of children just being able to have this kind of almost mystical connection to the dream world. They're a lot less bound by reality and restricted in the way that adults are. And so they can perceive things, I think, in ways that metaphorically in movies can be done through the paranormal. But I do think it can be done very well. And even in more modern movies, I do like it. Like The Babadook, I really like that film, and I like that relationship between the mother and the son who feels very distant from her. It's a small detail that has always annoyed me, and it's as simple as this. A character ending a phone call abruptly without saying goodbye or anything. It literally takes a second and would add to the realism of the scene. This is like maybe my number one cliche that I hate. And I've hated it ever since I was a child. It drove me nuts watching people in movies talk on the phone. They don't say hello or goodbye. And as a child, I thought I would try it myself and think like, well, if they do it in the movies, there must be something to it. Of course, it didn't work. I have no idea where that started, especially in The Matrix. Of course, I love The Matrix, so I'm not throwing shade at The Matrix, but they do that a lot. And it's always just so dramatic, It's like they pick up the phone and Morpheus just knows. He knows that Neo is on the other line, so he's just able to suddenly start monologuing in a very poetic sort of way. And then it's always like, I'll see you there. Why they always gotta be so dramatic? Girls without any legitimate experience getting a top-notch job in New York straight after moving there. Yes. When I was a kid, I thought, oh, living in New York will be so easy. And it's like, no, if you had a real life, if you really moved to New York, It would be very tough. It's always the girl goes to New York, she gets some receptionist job, yet she's able to live in this like Manhattan cool chic apartment. And it's like, no, if this were real life, you would not be living in the heart of New York. You'd have to take the subway like 2 hours every single day. You would be living in a shoebox in somebody's basement probably for like $2,000 a month minimum. It is very annoying. It's like I saw a little bit of The Devil Wears Prada the other day, and I love how she comes in, she's new, she's in New York City, and she gets there, and in her interview she basically says, I don't really want this job, but I kind of need it. And of course she has no style, no sense of fashion, but you know what? This could create conflict. I must hire her. When a character is fatally wounded, but is still able to commit one final action or say one last line before they convincingly fall dead. Yes, those are wonderful. The whole, tell Auntie M I won't make it to Christmas. But you know, I did watch Lord of the Rings recently, and when that happens, that cliche does happen at the end of the Fellowship of the Ring with Boromir. That's just the first thing that popped into my head. I actually think it is really effective. Yes, it is cliche, but again, I do think certain cliches can be done very well, especially when you're very aware that they are cliches. I'm not necessarily saying that's the case with Lord of the Rings, but there's a campiness to that film. And so I don't mind that sometimes. When it does fit the tone of the movie, there is suspension of disbelief. But yeah, there are certainly instances where that can be totally laughable and just ridiculously melodramatic. Oh, this one. When characters meet or talk at a restaurant and don't eat or drink a single damn thing. Yes. Oh my God. When I was a child and I would watch those scenes, I would just be like, there is guacamole and chips and salsa right between you and you're not going to eat it. And I could not focus on what they were saying. I was so taken out of it. Yes, the whole not eating thing does absolutely feel like it's very much a stage. Like it's very much, this is not real food. This is not a relatable world. That's how it always comes off to me. I do understand though, because it's like when you are an actor, we have to remember that doing scenes where you're eating a lot, that's very hard because you have to do take after take after take after take. So you eat a lot. So there's always, there's a good, the spit take technique. So I know it is not an easy thing for actors to do. Sometimes they get sick because they have to eat all day long just to do a scene. But at the same time, it does really create that realism. That's one thing I appreciate The Sopranos for. Every piece of food in that movie is real. You bet your ass it's real. And they are really eating it. It feels like a real Italian family. If you are reading/seeing this, I am dead shit is just annoying. Yes, this is a terrible cliche. I don't think it's worked ever, to my recollection at the moment. It is lazy, it is forced, it is a device meant to shock, to kind of shift the plot in a certain way. And it never works. I mean, spoiler alert, but this really did not work in the film Promising Young Woman for me, and I talked about that in my review. Yeah, that last scene really just felt like a cop-out. Like it was too afraid to really get dark and stick the landing in the way that it could have to make it really compelling and really interesting. And no, it kind of went for this glossy finish that was like, no, she's fine. Look, she got the last word in the end. So when I see a cliche like this in a good movie or a movie that has the potential to be good, yeah, it really rubs me the wrong way. Lately, a lot of characters are overpowered or already at their peak from the beginning without any sense of their journey to attain it. Its easy example is Rey in the new Star Wars trilogy, but a lot of movies are incorporating this now, perhaps to pander to dwindling attention spans. Yeah, I think also just to pander to the woke, really. It's like, I think that Hollywood has just become so woke that it's so afraid to ruffle feathers that in the mainstream, there is very little controversy to be had. Very little variation in character, a lot less flaws. With a character like Rey, it's very much trying to push this new generation where we're going to be woke and we have a female at the center, but rather than make this female an interesting character who, yes, has flaws and has to rise to an occasion, makes mistakes, they make her more just like, I have to be this tough, badass bitch, which may work for some people, but for me, I find it quite condescending because I consider myself a semi-intelligent woman. And yeah, the wokeness is just kind of pandering. It's propaganda and I can see right through it. And yeah, I take major offense to it. And it's not just with characters like Rey, but that's an example. It's like we have to create a kind of golden character that is perfect because that way nobody will get mad at us. This is a good one. Small girls beating up men twice their size, scenes created for woke reasons alone. I don't know if that's necessarily woke, because I have noticed that trend my whole life, and before it, it's always been a thing. But yes, certainly employed by the woke, I would say, but I will never understand that. As a kid, I loved action movies, and I loved, you know, like John McClane and James Bond, but they looked like people who could kick ass. Daniel Craig looks like somebody who could kick somebody's ass. The women that they pick for movies never look like they could kick anyone's ass. I'm sorry, but it's like Kill Bill is a great example. You know, I think there's a lot that's cool about that movie. It's not my favorite, certainly of Tarantino, but the fight scenes, the way they're choreographed, they're horrible. They're horrible. There, I said it. They're shot really well. Tarantino is an excellent director, but they're choreographed terribly because you have somebody at the center who's just not athletic. Uma Thurman is a great actress, but nothing about her makes me think that she could kick anybody's ass. I don't think she could kick my ass. And because of that, it's very hard to maintain suspension of disbelief when somebody just looks unathletic, yet they are flying through the air and doing all this stuff. And it bothers me so much with women in particular, because there are some badass women out there who can really kick ass. Hire Thug Rose Namajunas. I always thought Michelle Rodriguez was very convincing. Like, she could play a really like cool, tough, badass in an action movie, and you really believe it. But for the most part, it's just, it's never convincing, and it drives me nuts. Please stop making women wear high heels in horror movies. No one is that stupid or skilled enough to run from a killer in full stride and stilettos. Yeah, and that just kind of goes along with the other one. Like Catwoman, as an example. She's, you know, supposed to be this amazing fighter, this amazing spy, and, you know, quick to get away, and yet she is kicking people with stilettos. The Charlie's Angels are kicking people with stilettos, and it's like, please, girls. I have not worn a pair of heels since the year 2016. I hate it when I'm in a situation where suddenly you need to sporadically, you know, climb a cliff, or you need to like jump over a river, and you're wearing the wrong shoes. Life is too short for that. Especially if you are somebody that is meant to be a fighter. Wear tennis shoes. Wear shoes to fight in. Please be more realistic and stop trying to make everything really girly. It's ridiculous. But yeah, thank you guys so much for answering some of those, because you have nailed some of the cliches that drive me nuts. So thank you for that. But thank you for watching the video. Over here you will see my Patreon supporters. Thank you guys so much. If you are interested in becoming a patron, the link for that is below, as well as my social media information. You can watch more videos here, and you can subscribe if you'd like. Catch you next time.